Now, Interstellar may not be Christopher Nolan's most confusing movie, but it sure is a confusing movie at times. There's a lot of science going on, a lot of things that are hard to explain, but there's really only one that I care to talk about today, and that is, of course, who are they? This is KenoKino. Welcome. Let's go ahead and let's answer that question. I've got you right here, right now.
We must confront the reality that nothing in our solar system can help us.
So one of the biggest questions in Interstellar is, how does it all start? So, of course, spoilers ahead, we're going to get into what exactly happens in Interstellar and how does it make sense? How do we get there? How does it all work? And when I say that, what I mean is that throughout Interstellar, of course, we see as Murph is growing up and the years are going by, this ghost is speaking to her through her room. We learn later on that ghost happens to be her father from the future, while her father is there currently, and what that ghost relays. Because at this point, it's time travel. At this point, it's not too confusing until you get to the point where you realize that what the ghost is relaying, the information that it's relaying to Murph and to her father, is how to get her father where the ghost is now. And then that begs the question, how did the ghost ever get there in the first place if the ghost had to tell the father how to get there in the first place? Even me saying it, yeah, I'm sure you're having a hard time grasping where I'm at, but I think we're also kind of connected, right? It's pretty much, how does Cooper get himself where he needs to be in the beginning, in the very beginning, before we're even there? And well, the simple answer to me, this is all my explanation, what I believe is happening, and I think I am right. I think I've got it 100% nailed. The most simple answer to me is that he doesn't. It's not him who sends him there in the very first timeline. Okay, we're gonna need a little bit of help. Okay, welcome. This is my stream setup, but this is what we need, okay? We're gonna do a bit of a visual here to help us all kind of get where we're at, because it'll be so unbelievably easy to get lost. So go ahead, just follow me along here, and I'll take you down what I'm talking about and where I'm at here. So, the first thing we need is a timeline. Bam. This is our timeline. It's orange because I like the color orange. So this is Earth's timeline, right? From the beginning of the Earth to the end of the Earth. Or the beginning, the end, whatever, camera, inverse, all that good stuff. Okay. So what we need to understand is that there are multiple timelines that happen throughout Interstellar. We just don't see them. We see one. Now, the timeline we see is called the tangent. Now, the tangent is when our timeline is disrupted by Coop giving Coop a mission. And that mission, of course, is to find NASA, which leads to the entire events of Interstellar. Now, that's the one that we see. We see the tangent.
It's not Morse, Murph. It's binary. Thick is 1, thin is 0. Coordinates.
However, there's another timeline that has to happen before this one ever comes into existence. So let's talk about that timeline right now. Now, going off of our knowledge, what we know so far, this is going to be considered timeline 1. The OG timeline where the world really was going down like this prior to Coop's tangent. Now, of course, there could have been other things that have interfered in the timeline and a whole bunch of other things, but we don't see that. We don't know anything about it. So, for the sake of argument, this is the original timeline. When the Earth began, this is what happened from beginning to end. This is the timeline with no tangent where Coop comes in. In this timeline, this is where it all begins. Okay. Now, the movie tells us what will happen in timeline 1. If Coop's tangent never happens, if Coop never finds NASA and goes on his mission, the Earth will meet its end. Now, when the Earth meets its end, that happens because of many different factors, of course, running out of food, all these dust storms. The world is just coming to a total and complete collapse, climate change, everything is coming to an end, and it's coming to an end real fast. Now, the movie says that the last generation is pretty much going to be Murph's generation, and everyone will die out, and that is the end of everything because Coop wasn't there to save it.
Earth's atmosphere is 80% nitrogen. We don't even breathe nitrogen. Blight does, and as it thrives, our air gets less and less oxygen. The last people to starve will be the first to suffocate. And your daughter's generation will be the last to survive on Earth.
However, the movie was wrong. That's right. It just has to be true that the movie was wrong. Because in the original timeline, humans survived. Sorry to get all dramatic, just how it is. There was no end. But we don't know what it looks like. We don't know how it happens. We just know that the humans managed to keep going long after the world was meant to end. And we don't necessarily know who did it, how did they do it, why did they do it, all that jazz. All we know is that whoever it was are the ones that are referred to as they. They are the ones that originally sent Cooper the coordinates and created the Cooper tangent. So let's break that down really fast. What does that mean? So, in the movie, Cooper finds out that the people who sent him there are humans. They're themselves. They were sent there to save themselves.
I thought you get it yet, Tars. They're not beings. They're us.
Now, this is going off of Cooper's information. It's saying that it's them. That's really all we have to work with, and it makes sense. Who would want to save the Earth other than the people who live there, right? So what is basically explained through the movie and that you see is that those humans who originally survived, they ended up reaching the 5th dimension. Now, what that means is that they were able to live long enough and learn how to become transcendent beings that can see all the dimensions, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, including time. Where in time they're able to walk through time like you're walking down the street, right? Is that when you walk down the street, you're going forward, you're going backward, you're moving left, you're moving right, all that good stuff. But with time, you can never move through time. But these humans, they survived long enough and adapted and learned. This part isn't really explained whatsoever, but it's the only thing that makes it feasible that they one day were able to access the 5th dimension. And that 5th dimension, of course, being time.
Cooper, people couldn't build this.
No, not yet. But one day. Not you and me, but a people. A civilization that's evolved past the 4 dimensions we know.
Now, when they access this 5th dimension, there's a couple theories that can come into play, and I'm going to tell you the most likely one. The humans that survived are most likely a very small group of humans. Most likely they're living a horrible life, and they've lived a horrible life on Earth because they had to endure all of the horrible fallout that happened after the world collapsed. I mean, we're talking like survivalists in bunkers, maybe top secret scientists, NASA, like you see in the Cooper tangent, just government officials even maybe. And these people have survived for who knows how long. It could be days, could be weeks, could be months, but let's face it, we're talking centuries, eons, probably a group of maybe 100 officials or scientists even who've just kind of extended their life and have kind of lived a life. But of course, it's been a horrible life because they have no planet anymore. But then they get to a point where they're able to access the 5th dimension, and this changes things. This allows them to save humanity. So no longer are we talking some fallout, horrible living, horrible conditions, and a broken Earth that they lost. They can go back and change things and make it right and make things fixed. And how do they do that? Well, they had to do 2 things. The first thing they did was open a wormhole. A wormhole allowing humans to go through and travel to another galaxy.
A disturbance of space-time.
Hit a wormhole.
It appeared 48 years ago.
And it leads where?
Another galaxy.
A wormhole's not a naturally occurring phenomenon.
Someone placed it there.
They?
And whoever they are, they appear to be looking out for us. That wormhole lets us travel to other stars. Came along right as we needed it.
They've put potentially habitable worlds right within our reach. 12, in fact, from our initial probes.
You sent probes into that?
We sent people into it 10 years ago.
The Lazarus missions.
One filled with planets that could very well be habitable by humans. The other thing they had to do was go back in time to create Coop's tangent for Coop's mission. Now, let's kind of break that down. What am I saying here? Is that there's another timeline. Timeline 2. Now, in this timeline, the only thing that was sent to Coop were the coordinates. And not by Coop, but by the Timeline 1 humans. They send the coordinates down to Coop in order to lead him to NASA. So that way he can embark on Coop's mission and thus creating the Coop tangent. But we're not done, because we're not in Timeline 2. We're in Timeline 3, where Coop sends himself the coordinates, as well as the other information from Gargantua. The information that TARS collected, of course. But we'll get back to that. Let's go back to Timeline 2. Now, on Timeline 2, what happens? The humans send the coordinates through gravity to Cooper, knowing that Cooper is an incredible pilot and that he will be able to complete the mission of going through their wormhole up here and making it to those habitable planets. Now, I believe their original hope is that they will find habitable planets and that they will live happily ever after, right? Unfortunately, that is not what happens. Now, we know that when they do this, unfortunately, Coop's mission goes awry. They make it to the first planet only for everything to go horribly. They lose many years. The entire mission is shot. They escape, but only to go to Man's planet, where Man psychically tries to kill them. Psychically? I mean, like a psycho tries to kill them. And thus, after that all ends, all that's left is then they have to perform the slingshot maneuver near Gargantua to get Brand to the last planet, and Coop sacrifices himself. Now, the mission fails. They do not find a habitable planet. Brand does, but unfortunately, of course, the plan A to save all of humanity left on Earth falls flat. Does not work. And so, this is where I kind of want to talk about a different possibility that is false. That people throw out there that is wrong, and I want to talk about that really quick and show why that's wrong. Now, another theory thrown out there is that when Brand lands on the last planet, that on that planet, she enacts Plan B. Now, Plan B, of course, was that all the humans on Earth died, but more humans, new humans, will be created and live on Plan B. And people say that these are the humans that originally came back and sent Coop to NASA. And to that, I say, aha! Makes no sense whatsoever. And why does it make no sense whatsoever? Well, let me show you. Because there has to be a wormhole. The wormhole has to exist prior to the humans going back in time. Because the only way that Brand gets to that final planet is through the wormhole. But the wormhole was created by the Timeline 1 humans. The Timeline 1 humans that survived on Earth, most likely in horrible post-apocalyptic conditions, to eventually become fifth-dimensional beings and go back for Cooper. Now, without that wormhole, Brand never goes through it. The mission never happens with or without Cooper, and so it is impossible for those Plan B humans to be the ones who created this whole Cooper tangent. Okay, so that's done. Let's talk about what actually happens. What actually happens in Timeline 3. Now, what happens in Timeline 3 is that now we are at a point where Cooper is in the Tesseract. And now here is where it is Cooper that after Timeline 2 fails and he is sent to Gargantua, the Timeline 1 humans create the Tesseract, where Cooper is trapped inside after sacrificing himself to slingshot Brand to the final planet. Now, in the Tesseract, they create the entire bookshelf to help Cooper process the fifth dimension. Tars is there, and Tars gives Cooper the information that he needs to relay to Murph in order to save humanity. Now, that part's not as important. That is just kind of what happens. But we want to talk about what happens from here from Cooper's perspective, and how does Cooper enact Timeline 3, the one that we watch in Interstellar. Now, Cooper in the Tesseract sends himself the coordinates, and that thus creates the Cooper tangent in Timeline 3. So, in Timeline 3, there are multiple things at play. Now, we have the wormhole. The wormhole by Timeline 1 humans that Cooper is able to travel through on his mission thanks to the Cooper and the Tesseract. In Timeline 3, the original Timeline 1 humans no longer have to send Cooper the coordinates. Cooper is there to do it himself. But not only does he send the coordinates, he now has the information that Tars has collected that will show how to save the Earth. This, I believe, Timeline 1 humans were not planning on. I believe they had hoped that they will find a new habitable planet and that life will live on in this new timeline and things will be better. Unfortunately, that did not happen, but when it didn't happen, I believe that they saved Cooper in Gargantua, allowing him to save the Earth in general with the information that Tars is able to collect. So, let's break down, what are we seeing? What is happening? Okay, so Cooper in the Tesseract, after saving Brand, is now transcended past time. That's an important thing to keep in mind, is that Timeline 1 humans are also transcended past time. Cooper now able to see time in the Tesseract, he is transcended past time. So no longer are they bound by their timelines. This is the timeline. The never-ending, never-beginning time that is just constantly going. There's no more Timeline 1 or 2 to them. They just exist in this kind of limbo of time. Now, Cooper and the Tesseract will always, from here on out, Timeline 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, as time goes on through ad infinitum, until something else goes into Gargantua and starts messing with things. Who knows? But now, from here on out, all the timelines that come after have Cooper inside the Tesseract enacting everything with the coordinates and with the information. So Cooper sends the coordinates down to Cooper, which creates Coop's mission. Now Coop goes through the wormhole and he ends up in the Tesseract, and look at that. What do we have here? What do we have here but one big cycle that now happens through Timeline 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is the rest of his life. This is not the rest of his life. This is the rest of humanity. This is the rest of time. This will always happen now. The Coop tangent becomes time, becomes the new timeline. It all becomes everything after this. But I'm sorry. I'm digressing. I'm getting way ahead of myself. I'm getting into things that aren't really what we're here to talk about. So, now, like I said, Coop's in the Tesseract, sends the coordinates, gives it to Coop to go on the mission, and then this Coop goes into Timeline 4, does his thing, and everything that happens again in another timeline and will happen infinitum. But the important thing that's the difference between Timeline 1 and 2, where first the Timeline 1 humans send Coop to the Tesseract, or send Coop through the wormhole on the Coop's tangent, they didn't send him the information. Murph in Timeline 1 doesn't have the information. Probably because either they didn't think that they'd need it because they were hoping they'd find planets, or also as well, maybe they don't have the information. Maybe they have abilities, but they don't have knowledge, right? Or as much knowledge as you would hope that they did. That that Murph would need to save Earth, because they weren't banking on that. They were banking that Coop would make it to a new planet and life would be good, but that didn't happen. But Coop, when he enters the Tesseract, when he does so in timeline 2, what happens is that Coop gets the information from TARS, because TARS downloads it all and figures it all out. So that way, when Coop relays the coordinates to get Coop to NASA, then he also relays later on in the time. Let me actually use purple. He also relays later on in the time the information. And that information gives Murph the information she needs, of course, to save the planet. And well, I know it's a lot, but that's it. That is my explanation. What I believe makes complete and total sense. The only way it all makes sense to who are they? They is the Timeline 1 humans. They sent Coop through the wormhole, where unfortunately he was stuck in Gargantua. Now that was Timeline 2 Coop. Timeline 2 Coop, stuck in the Tesseract, is who sends Timeline 3 Coop, the one that we watch throughout Interstellar, all the information he needs to go on his mission and to, of course, give Murph the information to save the world. And there we go. I hope that answers everyone's questions and curiosities about what they witnessed in Interstellar, because it makes sense to me. I mean, I don't know. As someone who doesn't study anything, as someone who only watches movies and plays video games, it all makes perfect sense to me, what I said. If it doesn't make sense to you, let me know in the comment section below. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think I nailed it. I think I've got it down. And so, of course, Christopher Nolan, if you want to hop on the horn and let people know how right I am, feel free to do so. I love to hear from you. But anyways, everybody, that has been KenoKino. I am Keno. Thank you for watching. Hope that you enjoyed. Like I said, like, comment, subscribe for more. It's funny, I feel like this is a science information video, but no, it's just a movie video. Subscribe for more movie videos if you'd like to see some of those. And I got more things to say about lots of different movies. So, yeah. Thank you so much for checking it out, and have a great rest of your day. I hope this didn't ruin your brain for the next hour and a half. Like it definitely did. Anyways, good night, everybody.